Okay, again, I apologize. I think we solved that issue, so apologize for that. Some of the technical difficulties of using a webinar software. So I think that that solved it. I don't hear the feedback in my ear either, so I'm hoping that you all have now have a better connection. So again, apologize for that that interference. Okay, great. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them via the system as well as through the chat. But now I'll dive right into the presentation. So again, the Startup Stock Exchange. So let's talk through, an overview of the Web Exchange. What are the problems that SSX solves? What are our solutions? And what benefits does SSX offer to investors and companies? Because again, SSX is a platform for not only investors but also companies. I'm assuming most of you are interested in companies, and half of you are interested in investors. But again, we'll cover both aspects. What happens after you register on SSX? So diving right into what SSX is, investing and funding. So what we've created is a single marketplace where investors and companies can come together with a focus on startups. Investors can buy and sell public shares from startups. So investors, SSX is not a listing service. We're not just putting any company up onto the website. Every company that is available on SSX is publicly offering their shares and has been vetted and sourced by our team and been approved to trade on the exchange. And so what we're giving is investors the opportunity to buy those shares, and then as they move forward, we're giving them the opportunity to sell or even buy more. For startups, we're, as I mentioned, giving them the opportunity to raise funds via public offering. So instead of chasing after investors in more of a private offering, startups are able to raise their funds through a public offering, which is traditional in the marketplace. So let's talk about kind of what the problems that SSX solves specifically for investors. What that is right now, any investment opportunities that you may have in a startup, it is a private investment. And there's really no exit point for that investment except to have, say, Facebook or Google buy you, or to exit out to the NASDAQ or the NYSE or the AIM, which is traditionally a 5, 6, 7 year option. And so you as an investor have no real model for liquidity. Again, on that same point, it's almost impossible to monetize your investment until there is that exit point, whether it's through an IPO or through a purchase by a larger company. Only currently in a lot of these markets, only accredited investors are allowed to invest in startups. So it's a very small group of investors that are allowed to participate in these investments. Because it is a private investment, because there's a number of contractual obligations and so forth, currently most investors can't afford the minimum investment requirements. If it's costing $5,000 for a private contract, you as an investor obviously cannot, need to be investing much higher numbers in that. So that limits the type of investors that can participate in these types of investments. And then obviously sourcing the opportunity is time consuming. I mean, if you're a private investor, unless you're committed to this full time, finding those interesting deals and those opportunities that are out there is a very time consuming process, which goes right into the vetting of those companies. So you found a few opportunities that are available. Well, now how do you vet those companies? How do you conduct your due diligence on them? So that is a big problem for investors, because that is a very time consuming and really requires expertise on behalf of the investors. And then again, minimal access. So talking about the sourcing, it's difficult to really find companies outside of your geography and business, outside of different geographies and business sectors. So, how does SSX? So again, the problems on the startup side is, raising capital is frustrating, time consuming. If you've ever raised funds as an entrepreneur, you know that that's a very difficult and frustrating process and a very time consuming process. I know that was why, one of the reasons I started this company was the idea that, I wasn't a professional fundraiser when I was starting my company. I needed to focus on the day-to-day activities of my company, not being out chasing after investors. And that again ties into the international aspect of the company, which is, raising capital on an international basis is a difficult process. I mean, you say, okay, how many investors are available in my particular region or in my particular city even, and you know that those are limited. You know, we talked about the funding ecosystems of New York, the funding ecosystems of Silicon Valley. Yes, there's a large number of investors available there, but for international startups in Eastern Europe, in Latin America, in Africa, you know, how many investors are there available that are angel investors to participate? And so that is a big problem for these startups to find the capital they need. You know, again, tying to that same thing. So you've been working and spending a lot of time to chase after the capital. Well, you know, once you finally found someone who's willing to invest, or 2 or 3 people, you know, those people understand that they somewhat have you, you know, in a situation where they can propose unfavorable financing terms to you. You know, it's kind of hey, I'll invest 30 or 40%, take it or leave it type of thing. And you as a founder have now spent, you know, X number of hours chasing after those investors, and you're kind of in a bind where it's like, okay, I've already spent so much time, maybe I need to accept those unfavorable terms. You know, again, each investor has to be targeted separately. There's really no global reach. So you're having to reach out to each individual person, you know, cold calling them, sending emails and whatnot. There's no global reach to where, you know, on SSX, we now have the capability to say, this is my company, I'm going public. Investors who are already interested, come find me. You know, in all of this, it's that really the founders use more time on raising capital than on growing their business. I mean, they become professional fundraisers versus the entrepreneurs that they need to be to focus on the companies that they have. You know, so for our solution for investors, again, shares trade freely on SSX. You control your own account. So I mean, you have an online account with us where you buy and sell as you feel. You can say, I want 100 shares of this company, I want 1,000 shares of that company, etc. You know, everyone's allowed to invest on SSX, big or small, because we're not doing private deals. We're not doing 1 share, 10 shares, 100 shares, 1,000 shares, 100,000 shares, because those shares are publicly traded. You don't have that relationship where it's like, I'm signing a private contract, and so it only makes sense if I'm a big investor. You know, going to the minimum investment again, because you are trading the shares publicly, there is no minimum investment requirement. You know, we go out and find the opportunities for you. So you as an investor are not having to source those opportunities. We're working to market ourselves to startups and so forth, find the opportunities that are good, and then we vet them. So we take in the companies into our platform, and then we vet them along the way. We expect to have about a 2 to 3% acceptance rate of companies on the exchange, down to only a 2 or 3% acceptance rate. We've vetted those companies. We've investigated the background. We've researched. We've looked over the corporate structure and so forth. So we've vetted those companies and made them only the very best available to our investors. And with that, because we're reaching out globally, we're giving our investors access to companies worldwide across sectors. SSX is not just a startup, you know, for startup technology companies. It's for companies across sectors, across geographies. So, you know, we're looking at companies that do product, that have products. We're looking at real estate companies that have real estate. We're looking at funds that actually bundle different companies together. So there's a lot of different opportunities for investment. You know, our first IPO is a great company called VIP Only. It is a technology company that has daily sales of things like sunglasses and clothes, and has over 150,000 users in Morocco. That is a technology startup, and we're very happy to have them as our first IPO. But we also will have companies that are younger companies. We'll have companies that have been operating for a longer period of time, and we'll have companies that are across different business sectors. So talking on the other side, you know, how does our solution help you as a startup? You know, again, you have one application process, so you're not filling out different applications for different investors. It's a streamlined, step-by-step application process to get listed. So it's very clear. So really, in that process, we're also helping you. So like we talked about, there's only 2 or 3% that get accepted, but along that way, we're guiding this. We're providing feedback to the company. So you start at the very beginning, which is an executive summary. We're giving feedback on the executive summary. The next is a business plan. We're asking those startups, question by question to fill out their business plan so that they can get a very clear idea of what's expected of them. There's a single process for doing that, and we're able to get apples-to-apples comparisons. So we're able to say, okay, we need to know how you'll use your funds for marketing, how you'll use your funds for, how you'll use your funds for product or for development or whatnot. So we're able to get those answers and really guide the startups through that process, and they're able to complete it all online. Like we've talked about before, there's no dependence on one investor. You're able to sell to an unlimited group of investors worldwide, which, because they're on the exchange, makes it a very seamless process to take in additional investors. And I think long term, we can talk about this, but long term, you now have 1,000 investors who all have 1,000, 2,000, whatnot, all have a stake in your company and have a financial incentive to see that company essentially open up their Rolodex. Obviously, some investors will be more open and more helpful than others, but you now, as a startup founder, have access to these investors that are across the globe. So if you're looking to expand, you're looking for talent, you're looking for advice, you have the ability to reach out to those investors and really get their accept. You want to sell and when. So in the initial offering, you can say, we define exactly what that offering is. So I'm going to sell 20% of my company for X number to raise the money that I need. So it becomes a much more simplified process as well, because the idea too is once you're traded, you can always do secondary offerings and third offerings and so forth. So what we very much encourage our startups to do is to say, okay, I need $300,000 now to take me for the next 5 months, and how does that, then that money is able to take them for the next 5 months. They're able to build up their valuation, and then they can consider offering additional shares to sell, additional shares to raise more funds. So the startup founder is a little bit more in control than they are in the traditional funding models that are there. And like we said, like I was just mentioning, our process again. So you can do that secondary offering where you're saying, okay, I'm going to sell another 5%, 10% of my company to raise additional funding. And that's all done seamlessly through the platform, to existing shareholders or to new shareholders. And I think the most important thing is that because we brought you together on a common marketplace, you can now concentrate on growing your business versus being a fundraiser. So we talked about, that's our solution. We talked about our solution for investors. We talked about our solution for startups. But now, what are the benefits? So, for investors, obviously, the access to exciting opportunities, the access to potentially high-growth companies in one place, companies that have been sourced, opening up the platform to anyone as an angel investor. You can buy the shares you want. There's no minimum income, no minimum investment requirements. And again, I think the number one issue for an investor is liquidity. Your shares trade freely, and you can buy and sell as you wish. We can obviously argue about the liquidity and say, will a sale of some shares take a day? Will it take 2 days? Will it take 10 days? Will it take a month? It all depends on the market, depends on the pricing, depends on the number of shares you want to sell, but you have that capability for the liquidity versus any other traditional funding model for startups where your only liquidity is an exit of the company to an IPO, which is a very select few companies, or a purchase by a company, by another company such as Facebook or Google or whatnot. So that model for liquidity is available obviously on SSX. If a publicly traded company gets bought out by Facebook or chooses to go to a NASDAQ or whatnot, that's available. But with here, you're able to decide to sell as you wish, and I think also most importantly, you're able to buy more. If you've been following a company and you believe in it and you see its success over time, you're able to come in and say, okay, I'm putting an offer on the market for more shares. So the benefits for startups: concentrating on your business. No endless pitching to investors, reaching investors worldwide with one application. So you're not constantly running around. One investor wants one document this way, one investor wants another way. You're having to reach out, constant coffees and time spent and so forth to investors. And we're bringing all that together on a single marketplace, and raising the capital that you need. SSX is very targeted on the marketplace that it's serving, which is $3 million. We're not friends and family money in the pre-$100,000. We're not offering shares at a VC level or a larger NASDAQ or NYSE level of $10, $15, $20 million. We're targeted at providing capital in the early stage startup level between the $100,000 and the $3 million level. And the most important is the ease, is the step-by-step online process. We're helping you improve your business at each step. So even if you started that process at the very beginning and you don't qualify at the end to list, you've gotten something out of the process. Your business has improved by the feedback you've received by our team of reviewers as well as our advisors that we have around the globe. So you've gotten something out of that process. So just touching quickly upon, what happens after you've registered. For investors, you start the registration process. Because we are a financial institution, you have to be verified. And what that includes is submitting some listing service where we let anyone onto the process. Because we are handling funds and so forth for you and allowing you to buy and sell stock, we have to verify your identity to comply with certain laws and regulations. So there is that process that needs to occur. Once you've gone through that, you now have full access to company details, share prices, shareholders, management team, trade. You have bi-weekly reports from each company. You have access to the online community. So you get full access to the information that is needed on these companies once you become verified. You're able to browse the companies. You're able to fund your account because, again, you have to deposit funds into your account to be able to trade successfully on the exchange. And then, obviously, the next step is pledging to purchase shares that are on our IPOs. So we have two levels, right? We have the IPOs that we're currently offering, which is the pre-public trading, and then we have the actual public trading. Once the offering has been completed, those shares are publicly traded on the exchange. So in the example of the IPO only, they're currently in the IPO process. There's a fixed number of shares, 250,000, selling at $2. So people can come in, investors come in, they pledge for those shares. Once that offering has been filled, each investor gets the shares, and then that offering is, and then those shares, the offering is completed, and those shares are now publicly traded on the exchange. And that's where you get the more traditional market price, which is, okay, now it's selling for $2.02, and I can put in an offer to sell, or I can put in an offer to buy. So on our platform, we'll continue to have IPOs, even secondary offerings as we discussed, and then also the market trading of shares. Currently, our first company only is that we have the IPO, and that's the IPO only. For companies, the process is different. Obviously, your company account gets approved. You start your online step-by-step listing, improve your business along the way. Improve your business along the way, and you go to the point where if you're approved through the step-by-step process, you're able to go public. And then you're able to raise the capital you need, obviously, and you're able to focus on growing your business and stuff. Just to finish up, after you register, so you're able to concentrate on growing your business. And there was the last slide, so now we'll go into the questions and answering. Someone's asking, the predicted amount of available liquidity for this market is sufficient to keep this rolling in the coming 12 months. If the question is, what is the liquidity of the investors and so forth, and we're obviously building up the investor base of the platform. Someone who's buying into an IPO, there's that liquidity there for buying as investors from over 54 countries that are registered, and then we're building up that liquidity with those particular investors. We will, as an exchange, continue to promote the exchange to both investors and startups to build up that liquidity. Again, also too, liquidity ties into the movement of the company. So in the case of VIP only, they're selling their shares currently at $2. Well, on day two, there may not be dollars because they need to take that funding that they've raised in the IPO to make to execute. If you as a shareholder in the IPO, right after the IPO, you may not see the liquidity that VIP performed. Now, if you choose to say, I want to sell those shares because I need cash or whatever, again, that's, I think, an important piece of the liquidity investment, even, for any reason. And so, again, okay, I just need my cash back because I have a family emergency or whatnot. There's a lot of different things that happen. That's not necessarily not necessarily a bad indicator of the company. It's just that particular investor wanted to, that investor wanted to monetize their investment. And I think that people will step in and say, okay, I will buy at the $1.75. I can take advantage of that opportunity. So, the liquidity is being just the market price. So it also depends on the individual investor. If I put out an offer for, buying more shares at $2.10, someone who's a shareholder may choose to take me up on that offer. And that's, I think, an important piece that we haven't talked about in this presentation yet is the fact that SSX is a very transparent environment. Because you are dealing with early stage companies here, it's very important that there's a transparency. So people can see the open offers that are available. So if I put in an offer to buy at $2, 100 shares at $2.10, everyone who's a current investor can see that that offer is on the table, and they can choose to put in a sale that would match that offer. Just as if I want to sell some shares, any investors can see and decide to take advantage of them. So I believe someone is asking a question about restrictions for people in the Caribbean. There is no restrictions for people in the Caribbean except for the country of Anguilla, Caribbean. Obviously, every investor has to go through the verification process that we have on our site, so I would encourage you to do that at startup.sx. Go through the verification process. There are certain things that certain documents that you need to submit. There's certain extra documents that need to be submitted if the country that you're applying from is considered a higher risk country because of money laundering laws and so forth. So, but our system guides you through that seamlessly. There's help available along the way. There's an FAQ. There's a help video. There's even a phone number as you're going through the KYC process that you can help us, that you can call. And also too, since you participated in this webinar, I'm also give out my email. We also, have all of our social media. We're more than happy to answer your questions. You can also access our help desk where we have FAQs and we have a way for you to contact us directly. And of course, I'm more than happy to answer your questions personally. And we value our early investors and we value our early companies. And my email is Ian Haet, H-A-E-T, so it's I-A-N-H-A-E-T @startup.sx. So feel free to contact me. I'd be more than happy to speak with you. Be more than happy to receive your feedback on this webinar as it's our first one. And we'd like to make this a regular thing. And we can have webinars that focus on different areas. We also are open to your suggestions on the particular areas that you think we should cover. We can have some training on investing. We can have webinars about our verification process. Also, too, we very much encourage our startups that are listing to have a webinar so that the investors can see and talk to the founders. So we will be announcing a webinar for VIP only, which is our first IPO soon. So we will make that available. I'm going to also through the system now show you some polls, which actually looks like people are already answering. In answering. So, thank you for doing that. It's a poll about the benefits of SSX. The benefits of SSX as you like as an investor. So thank you for sharing your opinion. Again, feel free to share that via email as well. And thank you for answering the poll via this system. And please, as again, offer us any feedback if the GoToMeeting application is the best one for us to use. I know there's a number of different ones on the market, so I'd also appreciate any comments on that. Let me see if there's any additional questions. I don't see any. Also too, let us know with feedback of whether this system worked well with writing in the questions or whether it was, I should open it up to a verbal conversation. I just didn't want to overload everyone's process. So news about companies that are listed. So the question about that is we have a community forum that will be available for anyone to see what's going on with the startup, to allow the startup to publish news about what they're doing, updates, videos, etc. You also, as an investor, can then respond and ask questions of the startup that be in the forum. That's something you can see once you become a verified investor. Also, too, we have a follow function where you can follow companies, and you'll start getting updates via email. You start getting updates via email about that particular company. That's a piece that we're actually adding. The follow functionality is currently there, but the actual email updates of giving you that information has been being implemented in the next week to 2 weeks. So a question about reporting of companies, I think that's a big piece that we haven't touched on, which is, we're not like a standard. The current funding, I think, people look at crowdfunding, people look at other websites that are out there. And I think very much those platforms fail because they essentially drop the ball after the funding occurs. They made their money at the funding. They found, $500,000 for a startup. They connected the startup with the investors and they say, good luck. There's no ongoing obligation. They take their 10% or their 15% or whatever the numbers are, and just say kind of good luck to the investors and good luck to the company. And what we do is because the company is trading publicly through SSX, we have an ongoing requirement of our companies to report out to the investment community. And so they actually report on a bi-weekly basis. The reporting is all online. The reporting is fairly straightforward, and it's more a goal of just creating that transparency. And as I mentioned, investors have the capability to come in and say, because again, at a startup level, it's very important investors and the startups. So we very much want to connect people with them. The startups aren't required, the companies aren't required to give away intellectual property. They're not required to tell secrets that they wouldn't want people to, the average community to see, but they are required to make themselves available. But as you all know, we wouldn't want to be publicly advertising to anyone. Since we do make these reports available to any registered investor, there has to be a little bit of care about kind of the secrets that they give up in that reporting. But I think most investors can see exactly what's been going on with that younger company. So I think that's, again, I talked about kind of the question about intellectual property. Again, it's very much keeping the company's not having to give up intellectual information necessarily. In the prospectus, they do share certain things. So if a company has a patent, if a company has a permit and so forth, that is shared during the investment process, and the investors can view it. It's very, it's protected. And again, I think around the intellectual property, because people maybe ask, as a startup, you may ask, well, why do I need to give all this information? Well, I think any investor finds that important to make the proper investment. We need that information to properly vet you, but also too, I think you have to remember it's different than the current funding marketplace where you're out there kind of running around telling everyone about your company. In this case, you can privately apply to list on the exchange. No one knows your information until the IPO launches. So you're able, I think, through SSX, protect your intellectual property, protect your business idea much more. I know that I see founders doing it every day. They're up on stage and they're in different websites and whatever, just kind of telling anyone their information without a guarantee of investment, without necessarily knowing who they are, or without even like a timeline on that investment. But through us, you're going through the application process privately, and it's only until you've been approved and you've been formally listed that your information is made public to the investment community. There's a question about the reporting. The reporting requirements are necessary. They are required. We've kept them minimal in the time. I would expect on a bi-weekly basis that the reports take no more than 5 minutes. And again, they're all online. It's really just a report that allows to create the communication between the company and the investor. It's a report saying kind of, you said you were going to accomplish this. What did you accomplish? Are you having any problems with anything? Do you need help with anything? Is there any risk to your company? So we try to keep that reporting light and easy, but at the same time make sure that investors are well provided for. In terms of the starting process to get to an IPO, how long does that process take? It's really up to you as a company. We ask for the executive summary, we review it, we ask for the business plan, we review it. It can go through multiple cycles because obviously the plan needs to be complete. So if you as a company answer the reviews quickly, make it complete, make it robust for the investor community, can move forward quickly. The next step is the corporate and legal due diligence around your company. Again, if you have your corporation set up, your paperwork is clean, we're able to properly do the background checks on the shareholders and the investors, that all can move quickly. So I would envision probably the quickest it could be is 30 days, but more on an average of say 60 days or so forth. And that again is is if you're approved to list on the exchange. So again, we have another poll that's been put up there, so I hope you all get a chance to go in and answer it. I can see that some of you are, so please go ahead and answer that for us. I see about half of you have answered that, so please answer that for us and provide the feedback that we're looking for. And again, feel free to always contact us on social media or on our help desk to do that. It's about the benefits of listing you as a company, the benefits of SSX as a company from a company perspective. So if you could go in and answer that, that would be helpful. So I'm not sure if we have any more questions. I don't know if I see any more. Minimum investment. Can anyone invest? We have no current minimums on your investment, so we'd encourage anyone, even if you only have $20 and you want to invest. And we want SSX is truly democratizing the investment process in startups. So really, the minimum investment is 1 share. So if you want to buy 1 share of VIP only for $2, feel free. We want to have you experience the benefits of SSX. We want you to feel free to invest in the types of companies that you're interested in. So that could be 1 share, 10 shares, 20 shares, 1,000 shares, or whatnot. So again, we want you to feel that it's an opportunity to invest. And as we grow, you'll have the capability to very much spread your investments across different business sectors, across different geographies. So we all know that startup investing can be risky, and there's a potential to lose your investment because the company could fail. So again, I think our platform, the Startup Stock Exchange, very much gives you the opportunity to diversify. It allows you to invest $5,000 here, $5,000 there, or $1,000 there, versus where traditionally that $1,000 investment would be very difficult to do because the time consumption of sourcing, vetting, contracts, negotiation, etc. So we very much feel that we've been able to do that. Let's see, someone has a question about bundling. Let me see if I can answer that one. So anyway, I don't quite see it. But the question is that can you bundle your funds? If you want to come in with other investors, I would guess the question would be there's really no need to. I mean, if you're opening an account directly with us, so the investment is owned by you. That's why we have to have the identity information through the verification process. So, if you want to bundle with your friends, I mean, that's kind of your responsibility to do. We're opening the investment in your name. We will probably later on have, in the coming months, have some ability for you to purchase into, say, an index, Startup Stock Exchange index, so where you're purchasing shares in the index, which represent multiple companies. We'll have some funds where maybe a company is doing, let's say a fund is actually investing in multiple mobile startups in India, and you have the capability, that we come into the market as well. A couple other questions is, what happens if the company pledging process and the IPO of the offering closes? So let's say you pledge to buy 1,000 shares prior to investment. So in the case of VIP only, they are selling. They're saying 250,000 shares at a total rate of $500,000. So if VIP only does not reach its minimum investment, I'm sure they will, but if VIP only did not reach their minimum, no money would be withdrawn from the investor. So you run no risk of only $10,000 being raised and your money going to the company and the really minimum, for that to, if the minimums are not met, that you don't have any issues there. So that's a protection for all investors, and that minimum is set based upon what the company can do. If it's a very early stage company and they're looking to raise $200,000 to build a prototype, well, we're going to say you have to raise the full $200,000 for to be able to do anything, because it's not necessary. But in the case of VIP only, we've set the minimum at 70% of the 500,000 because we know that if they receive 70% of those funds, they're still able to execute on their goals and execute on what they need to do. So you do not run any risk that pledge is non-committal. You can even pledge during the offering process and cancel. So there's not any exposure to you. It's only up to the point of the closing of the offering. We obviously will send you alerts and so forth to let you know when the closing will occur. So it's very transparent, very much risk-free for you in terms of making that pledge. If you decide that you don't want to do it, you're able to cancel that prior to the offering. But I think that you very much want to complete the IPO purchase, and because I know in the case of the IPO only, it's a very exciting company. So appreciate your time, and I don't see if you have any more questions, but LinkedIn, via email, and obviously please be sure to register at startup.sx, and most importantly also be sure to please share startup.sx, the Startup Stock Exchange, with your friends and acquaintances on your own social media. If you're a registered user on the exchange, you'll see that we have an affiliate page, which actually gives you a unique link to send out to your acquaintances, your friends, your family via social media. And then as they come in and register on our site, we recognize you as the affiliate for them. And we'll have a commission sharing program so that you can actually earn some commission on the fees that we would earn from that particular individual or that particular company. So that is on the website under the affiliate page. The link would be that you would share out is really startup.sx/r about that. Feel free to review the FAQs and so forth. But we want to, if you're promoting SSX, we want you to also benefit from that. The commission is a small amount, but it's also because we're charging small amount of fees for our services. We're not taking a large percentage of money raised, such as the other crowdfunding platform, doing so not. So anyway, I encourage you to look at the affiliate page. I encourage you to share us with your friends, and please be sure to communicate with us via our different options for doing that. And thank you for participating in the webinar. We will have probably another one in the next week or so. And as I was saying, please also share if there's other areas you'd like us to cover on a direct one-on-one, and please provide us with feedback of how this process worked. If you would prefer to have a direct communication in terms of typing the questions in and so forth, was successful from your point of view. I mean, we are a platform for you. We are a platform for startup founders and entrepreneurs. We are a platform for investors, and so we want to make this platform work for you. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you for participating in our first webinar. Have a great day.